The second key that you need to know, this is a must-know bit of information, is you need to know the energy density. In my opinion, this is actually the most important key, because based off the energy density, it's going to affect the most how many rules that you have to follow. Because if you have a battery that has a lot of energy density, it's going to be subject to a lot more rules than a battery that has less energy density. When we talk about energy density, we're just talking about the amount of energy that can be stored inside the battery, right? So if something has more energy, that means it's potentially more dangerous, right? Because it can give off that energy, right? So it's a more severe type of hazard. So basically, the larger battery you have, it's going to have more rules that you have to do. So more in terms of how to package it, more in terms of how to mark and label, and so on. If you have a smaller size battery, they're not going to be subject to as many rules. So really, this is the most important thing to figure out, kind of what size of battery am I shipping? Now, to figure this out, the way that they measure energy density for the lithium-ion type batteries, again, these are the rechargeable type batteries, they measure this in watt hours. They use a watt-hour rating for this. Typically, it's pretty easy to figure out what the watt-hour rating is for a lithium-ion type battery. A lot of times you can just look at the battery itself, and it will just tell you right on the outside. For instance, if you look at the slide right now, you'll notice that this lithium-ion battery is 80 watt-hours, because it tells you right on there. Now, if somehow maybe you can't tell the watt-hour rating by looking at the battery, because sometimes we have devices that have the battery installed inside of it, and we can't get to it. Like my cell phone, for instance, I can't take the battery out of the cell phone. It's like permanently in there. There are some other ways to figure out what the watt-hour rating is. You could check any type of documentation that came with it, maybe like the safety data sheets, product spec sheets, and so on. You can also actually calculate the watt-hour rating. There is a calculation you can use if you know two bits of information. If you know the voltage and you know the amp hours for your battery, if you multiply those together, that will actually give you the watt hours. So voltage times the amp hours would provide that number. Again, typically we don't usually have to calculate this, because usually it's easy enough to just kind of look up the watt hour rating for our particular cell or battery. But that's how they measure the size for lithium-ion type batteries. Now, what about those lithium-metal batteries? Well, they're going to measure their energy density based off of the lithium-metal content. So in the battery, remember, the lithium-metal batteries contain actual lithium metal. So we want to know how much lithium metal is inside of that in grams. Now, when we talk about grams here, we're not talking about the total size of it. We're just talking specifically how much lithium is actually inside of that lithium metal battery. And again, they use a gram measurement for this. This information is typically not actually marked on the outside of the cell or the battery. So what I tell people with lithium metal, you gotta look it up. You just gotta figure out what the grams are. There actually is no calculation you can use to figure out the gram rating. Instead, you got to investigate. So, we give some examples of some things that you can be doing. For instance, if your battery came with a safety data sheet, an SDS, you could take a look there. Maybe it's on there. Sometimes it's not. If it's not on the SDS, check something else. Maybe go check the product spec sheets. You could check the lithium battery test summary. All lithium batteries actually have to go through specific testing requirements by the manufacturer. You usually can find that on their website. If you have the test summary, you can find out the gram rating there. If all else fails, you can reach out to the manufacturer. Just ask them how many grams of lithium are inside this lithium metal battery. Now, once you have that information, once you have the watt-hour rating for the lithium-ion type batteries, once you have the gram rating for the lithium metal type, that is going to dictate how many rules that you have to follow. So again, if you have a larger sized battery, you have a lot more things that you have to do. So, if you have a larger battery, it's going to limit the number of batteries you can have in the package. It's going to affect what kind of marks and labels. The larger size batteries require a lot more communication on the outside of the box than like a smaller size lithium battery. It's also going to affect your paperwork. If you ship larger batteries, you got to fill out hazmat paperwork. Smaller size batteries, typically you don't have to do that. So again, this is a key step. You need to know, how big is the battery. Now, what we've done is we've actually created a little table to assist you with that. You can see it on the screen right now. I do know it's kind of small. if you go to our website, line.com/4keys, we do have this chart available. So you can always pull that up. And this is not something that you'll find in the regulations. This is actually something that Line Technology created to make it a lot easier to kind of figure out the size of your battery. Because if you look in the regs, it kind of writes all this information out in paragraph form. It can be a little difficult to kind of read through it, right? So we're trying to simplify it, make it a little easier.
If you're new to shipping lithium batteries, there are 4 key fundamentals that you need command of to do it right. Grab the ultimate guide to those 4 keys from lion.com/4keys, then watch our full video on YouTube to find out what lithium battery shippers need to know for 2024.